Hey folks, if you are one of the two people watching live right now, could you please let me know if you can hear me? could hear me, but I also was just mute. So I guess now I'm unmute. So hopefully also the folks online hear us as well. We're just making sure the microphone's loud enough for people in the room. So, well, oh, there we go. There's also an interesting echo. Maybe I'm a bit near to the speaker. Okay, folks, so welcome. Thank you all for making it out this long way for all the in-person folks, and thank you for joining us online, to all the in-person people, and anyone that's watching this as a recording. And it's really great to have everybody so engaged with our community. And we're really happy to be able to try and do things in this hybrid manner, considering the last couple of years, and also all of the benefits of being able to make it a more inclusive space. So, am I too near the speaker? Is that why it's making this noise? No. Okay. If it's all right for everybody else sound-wise, I'll live with the sound of my voice somehow. Okay. Welcome to PyLadies Berlin. Who is attending this meetup for the first time? Amazing. Online folks, you can let me know in the comments as well. I see about half a dozen hands here in the room, so that's really cool. Welcome. I hope that you have a great evening and that you learn lots, you connect lots to people, you enjoy the pizza and the drinks that are in the room, but also, or maybe more importantly, that you join our community and come back for more of our events. So PyLadies is actually a global community. So this is the Berlin chapter that you're visiting and getting to see today, but there's different chapters all over the world. So if you want to go on holiday, or if you're visiting from somewhere else, you can also go find your local chapter. I think this microphone is causing me more problems than it's doing me any good. So I'm just going to talk a little bit louder because the people online basically cannot hear me with this. Okay, so if you're right at the back, just come nearer. I don't bite. Pull your seats forwards. I think they're on wheels. And we'll maybe just try to do something a little bit with that for the other speakers. So our group is focused on mentorship for marginalized genders. And it's not limited to women, it's also for non-binary, for trans people, and women in tech. And it's focusing really on helping our community become more active participants and leaders in the Python open source world. That also leads into our mission of education, advancing a diverse Python community. And we do that through education, like this kind of event, conferences, and social gatherings. And we're aiming to provide a friendly support network for gender minorities and a bridge to the larger Python world. So many of you, hopefully you've heard of Python. Maybe that's why you came this evening. You might know that there's also a community around Python as a language, and we are a part of that in our own right as well. So PyLadies Berlin was founded in 2013. Oh, sorry. And we have today over 2,000 members on Meetup. We've got 6, but I think this slide might be incorrect because I think it's actually 5 chapters in Germany. There's always a little bit of a mixed round. 2 became Southwest together. So the point being that we have multiple chapters here in Germany, and lots of them will be coming together during the PyCon event that's happening in April. We do regular monthly meetups with talks and workshops, full-day workshops, set-up events to help you get started with coding, and we also work on connecting people to companies, such as our amazing sponsors this evening, Rapid. Also, really, we can do anything we can dream of, and I use the operative word "we" there, because essentially this is our community, your community, my community, and together we can make those things happen. So this is a call for action to get involved. These events are all completely voluntary run. Myself and the other organizers team, we do this alongside our jobs as programmers or other tech individuals, alongside our studies, and alongside all of our other free time activities. So it's a great way for you to meet people. It's a great way for you to meet companies. You You can develop your presentation skills, you can develop organization skills, and it's a chance for you to lead the community where you see that it most needs that leadership. Our next event after this one will be in a week's time, or just over a week. We're going to do a book club around the book Hacking Diversity. We'll also have Christina, who is the author, present and talking to us about the book. If you haven't read the book, that's also okay. You can come and still join the conversation, and maybe it will inspire you to also read the book afterwards, or maybe not. That's totally fine. But if you want to join that event, I realize maybe this purple was not a great choice from the pink. There's a QR code here, but also all of this information is available on our Meetup page. So Meetup is the best place to see what events we have coming up. Also, the best place to join us and find out more is our Slack. Who's on the Slack workspace already? Okay, almost everyone. Not sure about the online folks, but that is the place to be. That's where it's happening. Really easy to join. Go to slackin.pyladies.com. That will prompt you for your email. This is a global Slack, so accept the invitation when you get it, and then join City Berlin. City Berlin is our main channel, but you'll also find other channels related to City Berlin for events organization and for different individual events. But you'll also find many global channels which you can join, and then you will get help for like finding jobs, getting help on your personal projects, asking questions, looking for mentorship, and so forth. If this is all sounded so good, how could it possibly get better? Well, here's how it can get better. We have a raffle. You can win tickets to PyCon Germany, which is also PyCon and PyData together. So 2 for the price of 1. Can't get much better than that. If you enter this Google form. So again, if you're like, I can't read that really long, yeah, me neither, that's okay. If you don't have time to scan this QR code because you're sat over there, then this is also in our Slack, and that's the easiest place to find this sign up. We have something like 15 tickets for in-person and 40 tickets for online. So if you really enjoy learning more about Python, it's a really great community to be part of. And yeah, I'm sadly not going to be there personally this year, but I've really enjoyed the previous years. So I recommend you put your name in the hat. What gets better than 1 raffle? 2 raffles. Woo! This is, you know, popping off this evening. So there is also a really awesome conference happening this summer called the Women in Data and AI Summit. It's the first time this has ever taken place, run by people who are local tech professionals who have kind of like fed up of attending all these conferences that predominantly only have male speakers. Sound familiar? So this conference will only have gender minorities represented in the speakers, but it's open to everyone. So everyone can attend. I highly recommend that you do and that you support this effort. And we have 1 ticket as a community sponsor. And again, we're using a Google form to collect for that. And I will also post a link for this in the Slack. But it doesn't stop. I have more for you. Did you want to create one of these for yourself? Yes, of course, of course. One of the amazing women or people, in the PyLadies community created this avatar website that you can like put in different things. You can click and feel and lucky and get a random one, or you can personalize it to how you want it to look. And that's ava.pyladies.se. Was one of the members of the Swedish group, I believe, which is why it has this ending. So a community project written in JavaScript, but we'll ignore that part for the time being. But it makes you really get involved and personalize your community experience. So all the fun stuff. Now we have to talk about some serious stuff. Also fun, but like, you know, this is a safe space. And we have a code of conduct. We take the code of conduct very seriously. If you experience or you observe anything that you feel is breaking that code of conduct, reach out to us in our email, which is berlin@pyladies.com. If you don't feel comfortable sending the email, you can also reach out to me directly in person during the event. This is a dedicated space for providing a respectful, harassment-free community for everybody. So we absolutely do not tolerate harassment or bullying of any community member in any forum. We're all here to learn and to get better. And like I say, if you observe that, we will take it seriously and we will look into it with different committee members so that we can work forwards to making sure this space stays safe. With that, I'd also like to point out we're going to take photos during the event, which we will use for social media, and Rapid will also be using. So if you're not comfortable with being in photos, please let us know ASAP. Perhaps myself and maybe Jenny, can I volunteer you from Rapid as a person to go and say, hey, I don't want to be in any of the photos. And let's get on to this evening. So we're starting a little bit late. Apologies about that. This is our community introduction. We're then going to have a great introduction about Rapid, our wonderful sponsors, with Yemi. We're then going to have a talk about data engineering with V. And after that, we will have a remote speaker join us for a talk about gathering your unexpected allies to help you succeed. We also have food, as you may have seen. Make sure that you go and eat it. I'm sure that Rapid do not want to throw pizza away at the end of this event. And we also need to be out, well, probably before 8:30 would be preferable for the Rapid guys, but like, you know, roughly at 8:30 is close. Go home, go out into the city, do what you want. If you're online, go do something on a different YouTube channel. So we have three great speakers, and I'm going to introduce them now rather than doing little bits in between. So the first speaker that we have is Yemi, who remote people see in a minute, but you can see is already with us here. She is the Senior Director of Engineering here at Rapid, so also a good person to speak to if you're interested to know more about what Rapid are doing, and originally from Hong Kong. Maybe I won't read out the full thing because we're a bit behind on time, Yenny, if that's okay. But I would like to say, as a personal note, Yenny is an amazing presenter. And if anyone knows the Python Pizza conference, which is also an amazing conference, you will know how good she is at telling jokes. And if you're like, I don't get that reference, then watch this space, because don't want to promise, but maybe later in the year we will have a Python pizza. Maybe we can persuade her to join us. Our second speaker is Dee, who is also a PyLadies organizer and has been supporting the team. She's a trained Victorian, I almost said, but maybe also a trained Victorian. I'm not quite sure how that would work. Turned self-employed English teacher, turned community taught techie. So she's gone through the process. She knows what it looks like. Currently working at SAP. I'm not sure why this text is looking a little bit funny. Sorry about that. But that will be our second speaker of the evening. And last but not least will be Anna, who will be joining us remotely. And she's a passion-driven solution seeker, psychologist, researcher, data analyst, and so on and so on. So three amazing speakers. Before I disappear, I will say, please get in touch with us. We will ask, we have a couple of feedback forms. If you can help fill them in at the end, it helps us improve these events. You can also register to be a member of PyLadies. If you don't know what that means, come see me and we can talk about it, because everyone is entitled to join us. And if you become a member of PyLadies, you also become a member of the Python Software Foundation. So I'm done. Thank you for bearing with me. Hopefully everything will run smoothly from here on out technically. And I'd like to invite Yenny over and we'll set up her machine.
see some familiar faces. I've been meeting a few of you, I guess, at PyCon, different community events. So really good to see everyone in this community. And well, before I start introduction and presenting on anything, I just want to mention that I think PyLadies always has a special place in my heart, because I think when I started with my developer journey, like the community and the people and the network really helped me get started. I think when I gave my first talk, like that's this community that supported me to get to where I am today. So I'm just really happy that, this is an occasion. Oh, how is everyone doing here, by the way? Good, okay. So yeah, so I'm just really happy that today I have the chance to speak to all of you, and hopefully that you can also find as much value in the community as I have done, throughout this time. All right, so a little bit about me. My name is Yanni Cheng, and as Jessica mentioned, I'm from Hong Kong. Somehow ended up here in Germany and in Berlin. I've been working at Rapid for around 6 months now as a senior director of engineering, and our teams here focus on developer tooling, which I'm actually going to showcase to you. So a brief background on the company: we work on API hubs. One of our famous product is an API marketplace. That means we can go into the marketplace and you can find any API that you would want. For example, if one day I wake up and I want to build a weather app, I can just quickly go to the marketplace and look for an API. You even have reviews, the latency amount to find the right API that you would need to help you build your application. And it's in our mission to help developers build great applications and great software. But without further ado, I want to showcase to you what this team in Berlin and in Europe actually do, so that you will have a better understanding and maybe you would one day want to join our team. So I'm going to share my screen here. Can you see anything? No, you cannot. Let me see.
You're going to mirror the screen, right?
Maybe what I need to do is to do this. Okay, good. 1 second.
Yeah.
So let me quickly set it up. So the first product and the first, outcome that I want to share with you is our Visual Studio Code extension. So let me just drag this quickly to the bigger screen. There we go. Can you see clearly? It's probably too small, no? Okay. How about this? Can folks in from the back see the screen? No? Okay, maybe a bit more? Like this?
Or maybe everyone rolls forwards 2 feet.
Yeah.
Careful, you've got drinks on the floor. Yeah.
Probably like this. You'll be able to see.
Senior people is coming towards you. Yes.
All right. So for Rapid here, we enable consumers of the API and producer, like publisher of API, work seamlessly across the platform. So that's one thing that we're building for the producer and as well as consumer of APIs. This is an API that I have built. So the story is that in January, the whole team, all of us actually went to Marrakesh for our annual kickoff. So before the kickoff, I wanted to pack my bags and want to understand where exactly can I go in Marrakesh. I've never been there before. So I've done an API where you can just do a get, and then you can get a response of all the top tourist attractions in Marrakesh. So let's see if that works out, right? What we can do is we can send a request. Okay. And there we go. So if we see, if anyone has been to Marrakesh, we have Medina Souks, we have the assembly place, and we have the Cordovia mosque there. So I actually did visit the souk here, because the API is pretty useful. Now, actually, let me sync up with the projects that I have online. And I have developed actually even more endpoints than this. Okay, let me just quickly get attractions from here. How do I send this? Let me just quickly reload this. Okay, there we go. And then I want to get a volunteer. To add to my API, I want to add another attraction to the list. Who here want to come up with me here to draft the request?
That's a good offer. Come on, don't be shy.
How about we have you come up? No, oh yeah, sure. Yes. Come up, come up.
Come on.
Yay! All right, so here, if you look at the structure, we have 5 of these attractions that we have pulled from Marrakesh. And I already have a sample request for you in the body. And like the name is just called hotel, and it's the perfect place for us to unwind. But feel free to modify the request as you see fit. So what we're trying to do is to add another tourist attraction to my API in the database of an attraction. So just so you can edit.
But just another one.
Yeah, or you can just adjust the description from there. It takes one input. So here, do you like for the name and description, you can change that to what you would want to add.
Here?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Maybe
give me a name. What? My name?
Yeah, sure.
Andy.
Okay.
Oh, no, hold on. Okay.
All right. And then description. Okay.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
That's it. Okay.
Yes. Oh, let's see. Let's send the request. Wait, stay with me here. Stay with me. see if we can send the request and make sure it goes through. All right. So let me just check the. All right. It seems like it's working. So let's do the get request again. No. Yeah. Exactly. To see if we get the response across. All right. Kudos to Andy. Now we have one more item in our list. And yeah, like more things you can do, like not just creating a request so it will be a simple API client. We want it to be more than an API client. So we actually have a test as well that we can create with Visual Studio Code, or maybe we can also use our web interface. So let me see if I can navigate this correctly. Open new window. Okay, so that'll be the web interface that we have. And I can actually look for the same project here and create some tests out of the box. So let's create a test to test my API. I'm sure you'll be more creative than me. So let's add, okay, this is the API that we have created, the GET request. And let's send the request to get started. All right, and what we can do is to add to test. All right, and we can save and run it. waiting. And success. All right. And the beautiful thing is I can actually sync this up and the same text would show up in your environment. So we're really bringing that experience to your IDE to make sure that the interaction is seamless here. And one more cool thing that I'll show you, this is actually before the launch that's going to happen tomorrow. Masha there, behind you, developed that feature. All right, so we'll see what Masha has come up with us. All we can do is to search. As I mentioned, we have a marketplace, right? So let's just search weather. If you want to build a weather app, like what kind of information I would want to know. Well, let's say I like skiing. I don't actually like skiing, but let's go to the API and let's just get a 5-day forecast, and then let's test it out, right? If I want to build an app, I want to know like how the response shape would look like. So we're sending the request. Oh, timed out. We're gonna do it one more time. Oh, okay. We can get an hourly forecast. Maybe it'll be quicker. Okay. Well, there we go. So let's see. We can get the response here. Okay, well, the response body is empty, but I think we'll look into it. We'll look in it. Tomorrow is the day when we actually launch. But as you see, this is the experience we want to create for users, bringing the search experience even into your IDE so that whenever you want to develop an application, you can just pull that right inside the VS Code. And we don't only have the Visual Studio Code extension, we also have the Mac app for you. So I can quickly show that as well. Rapid API. So with a very similar interface. So that means if you prefer a Visual Studio Code or Mac app or web app, like basically you can really like just stay in your habitat and then do your development process. All right, that's it. That's it that I want to show with you today. And I want to congratulate for the team, all the work that you have been doing to make the tools like a greater experience for everyone that might be using it, in this group. So yeah, well, thank you. Then I pass the mic to our first speaker.
Is this better?
That's better.
Cool. Should I start again?
Yes.
Nice. So that was my dry run. So my name's V, for anyone listening online. You can also call me Victoria. My pronouns are she, her. I am a junior data engineer at SAP Signavio, and I'm here to talk about what a data engineer is and how to be it and how to get away with it. Nice. So my intentions for this talk are kind of twofold, because I kind of ended up in data engineering. It was not the plan. I'm kind of going to give this talk as if I'm talking to myself 2 years ago. This is the talk that I would have wanted at that stage because it's very vague what a data engineer kind of does. And so I will talk about that. I will talk about what a data engineer is compared to other data roles. There are many. What does that look like every day? And then if you feel inspired, the skills that you need to get away with that too. And why I love this job. You will pick this up throughout this talk. I really love my job. So how did I end up here? Well, I am a classic case career changer in the sense that I have a history degree, which is always a great start for data engineering. Weirdly, yes. But then I was an English teacher for 9 years, teaching English as a foreign language. Then at the end of 2017, I was bored and wanted to do something else. And by 2019, I was at Fraunloop training in backend development. Fraunloop's a very excellent training program for minorities to get into tech. If you're interested, speak to me afterwards. And at the end of 2019, I quit teaching with the grand plans like everyone had at 2019, like I'm going to quit teaching, I'm going to travel a bit, I'm going to have my first job. And 2020 happened. And I was unemployed for all of 2020. I did some really cool projects, with some of whom in the room, but I did not have my first tech dream job as planned. But at the beginning of 2021, I did get an internship with a small software consultancy in Leipzig. This did not work out and it ended after 3 months. So back on the job hunt, I handed my CV to the Fraunloop CEO, Nakima. She's like, don't worry about it, I know someone. So a few weeks later, I get an email invite from this company called Signavio, saying, thank you for your application as a data engineer. Okay. Well, I'm unemployed. I may as well just go. But it turned out they were really nice. I really enjoyed the interview process. I really enjoyed the code challenge. I really liked the team and the manager. And so, of course, when they offered me the job, I said, yes, absolutely. So that was the end of that was July 2021. I was starting in September. I decided to go home to the UK for a month for the last long vacation. And they were also very excited that I got my first full-time tech position. And of course, the question was, what is a data engineer? To which my reply was this, because I had no idea what a data engineer was. I had a vague idea. I knew it involved Python, which made me happy, but that was it. So before I explain what a data engineer is, let's have a school trip to the library. So let's say you have a question. For example, your question might be, how many millimeters of rain fell in Berlin in February? You decide not to use Google, you decide to go to a library. And I'm talking like a physical bibliothèque building. You walk in. And of course, the librarian is there very happy to help you. You say, this is my question. The librarian goes, of course, checks their system and directs you to the aisle with the book that you need with the code. You then take the book and your question is answered. So we have in the situation 2 people. You have the librarian and you have the person with the question. There is also someone putting the books on the shelves. This person works behind the scenes to make sure the books are in a nice order, that all the pages are there. There are not 2 of the same page, that if the books is not needed, that they are archived correctly. From my perspective, this is what a data engineer does. We are working behind the scenes to make sure the answers are in a good state so that they can serve your questions. So to bring this more to the data world, this is a very simplified version of Monica Rigati's data science hierarchy of needs. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each of these levels. So it's similar to Maslow's hierarchy of needs in that, like, your base needs need to be fulfilled before you can go further up. So like for humans, it's food, shelter, water, and so on. We have something similar in data. And I'm going to talk about each of these levels and then how it's distributed amongst different roles, kind of. So right at the bottom, before you do anything with data, you have to collect the data. What is data? Data is, so I'm pretty sure we've all ordered something on Amazon at some point. Data could be you set up an account. That's a data point. You then go into, you put something in your shopping basket. This is also a piece of data. You put something else to your shopping basket, and then you make your purchase. This is another set of data. And this is something that companies are all very interested in. So this needs to be collected or it's provided. So once you have the data, you need to have the ability to move it around. Moving around being getting it from a space where it's collected to somewhere where you can have value from it. And you also need to think about storing it, where you're going to put the data. Then once you have it, you moved it, you stored it, whatever, you start to clean it or transform it. I will use these words interchangeably. They're kind of the same in my head. This means detecting and removing anomalies. So for example, you put something in your shopping basket. In the database, this entry comes up twice. This is an anomaly. We need to look at why it's turned up twice, because this will then change the answer later, which we don't want. So you need to make sure that your data is clean in this respect. Then, once you've cleaned it, you can start to analyze it. You can start to answer the questions. This is where a lot of data teams stop. This is, for example, in my team, we stop here. We don't go further than this. We get to the analysis part. But if you want to, you can start to use the data to optimize what you have. For example, with the Amazon example, they might decide, oh, what if we change the color of that button? What will that how will that change user behavior? And so they will do a bunch of testing, and then using the data from user behavior, they will make product decisions based on that. And then if you want, you can go even further. You can start to use AI. So in the Amazon context, this would look like recommendations. They'll see, this user bought this, this, and this in the last month. Maybe they'll like this. And so they'll start to use data for that as well. You could probably guess, because I spoke about those three the most, this is where I spend most of my time as a data engineer. You might also hear the title or the job role, data analyst. They tend to spend their time on the fourth row, so to speak. And then data analysts and then data scientists tend to spend their time in the top three. I'm saying tend to very intentionally because it depends. So it depends on the size of your company. It depends on the size of your team. It depends on how your company understands data roles. So for example, there could be some people in the room who are like saying, hey, I'm the data scientist, but I only do the analysis. That's totally valid. It could be that you're a software engineer, but you collect data, also valid. The pro tip is that, like, if you're thinking about getting into data, but you're not sure what the title means, actually look at the responsibilities listed in the job advert, and then you will get more of an idea of what you would be doing every day. This is more important than the random title that they give you at the end. So, good. So I'm in these bottom three layers. What does that look like every day? Well, it looks like the pipeline. What is a pipeline? And again, pipeline is also one of those words which means different things to different people. For me, it's called ETL. So extract, transform, load. You extract data from different points, different products, whatever. You then transform this data, you make it clean, as I mentioned earlier, and then once it's in a usable state, you load it into a data warehouse. Don't worry what a data warehouse is, it's where the data lives. And then once it's in the data warehouse, it can be used by the data analyst, for example. They can access this to start to visualize data in a way that other people external to the data world can understand it more accessibly. Good. So drilling down, so I could, like, in terms of the concrete tasks of what I do every day, I could use a lot of fancy words. I don't want to use a lot of fancy words. So on a high level for the tech side, it means so every day, because I'm in a junior position, I'm also learning a lot. I think you learn at every seniority level, but that's another discussion. You learn about individual tasks, so any of those tasks within the bottom three. You learn about the tools you need for that, and then how they fit together. So for example, to go back to this cleaning, transforming data situation, you might have a place where the raw data is living. Raw is also known as messy data. It's the data that's coming in from the product. And then we want to make it clean. So there's the raw data living place and there's the clean data living place. But how do you get it from one place to the next? So you have to ask yourself questions like, well, how do I do that? What tool do I want to use? What needs to be cleaned? So what do I need to remove? What don't I need here? And also, how do I ensure it's secure? So data is gold. You need to make sure your data is protected in case there is an attack on your system. In terms of the tech stack, for example, in my team, we are using AWS a lot, which involves TypeScript, but we are also using Python and we're also using SQL. SQL is a query language. You use it to ask your data set questions, essentially. So that's the tech side. I'm reading a very good book at the moment, which I will reference at the end. It calls it the business side of data engineering, because you do have to think a lot about the business and what they need. I prefer to call it the human side because that's who you speak to. I'm in quite a big data team. We are 6 engineers and 3 analysts and a PO, which is, from speaking to other people, that's quite a lot of people. So I do lots of pairing with other engineers. I talk to the analysts. So if they notice something weird, like, do you remember that, like the 2 rows which were the same? They'll come to me about that and say, why is that there? I'll say, that's a good question. I will look for you. And then solve all of the problems in the world. And then I also need to check in with stakeholders. Stakeholder is someone who's interested in what you're doing. For us, it's data. There are 2 kinds of stakeholders. As a data engineer, there are people who are providing us with the data, and there are people who are interested in the data that we have. They want to use it in some way to improve the product or to make some kind of business decision. But never, regardless of who you are speaking to, it's always asking, what do you need, why, and how can I best get it to you? Because data has to have a purpose, otherwise it's just a toy. So if you feel inspired to become a data engineer, here are some skills that you can look at or you can build on if you want to get into this world. I will focus on the technical skills for the scope of this talk. Python. Yeah, that's why I was allowed to give this talk here. No, you do need Python. I did my code challenge in Python, for example, which was really like, it was just such a dream. I've been applying for back-end development roles and it'd become increasingly JavaScript and it was driving me insane. So like to do a code challenge in Python was just such a joy for me. SQL, so these are the top two I would say that you need. It's good if you feel comfortable in Bash or in command line. You spend a lot of time in terminal connecting to different networks and so on. Any knowledge of databases, there are a lot of databases. Google that and get lost in that rabbit hole if you want. Anything about API requests or CRUD. CRUD is like, what is it? Create. Thank you. I'm very nervous, so I always forget acronyms when I'm nervous. But basically any kind of data manipulation, anything of like fetching data and then doing something with it and then putting it somewhere else, that kind of stuff. A basic knowledge of distributed systems or message brokers. Very shortly explains that's basically splitting one thing into lots of different things to make things go faster. Java, Scala, I mean, it makes recruiters' eyes go sparkly, but we don't use it in my team. We avoid it as much as we can. We are Python first. Python is much more accessible to most people. But of course, if it doesn't hurt if you know something like Java or Scala. Okay. Oh yeah, because the full disclosure is, when I was hired, I knew Python. If I was generous, I'd call myself an advanced beginner. I knew basic SQL. I had a vague understanding of APIs, a bit about relational databases, an interest in message brokers, because I had like what I called SQL Fridays when I was unemployed, because I started to learn about these things for myself. So I was a secret data engineer before I was an actual data engineer. And part of this was this thing called message brokers. Again, you can Google it, get lost in that rabbit hole. I did, for sure. And that's it, that's all I knew. I was hired entirely on potential. I was very interested in this side of tech, and I love learning, and I learn quickly. And so that was what they saw when I was offered the position. And the lesson learned for me for that is apply anyway. So if you see a data engineer or a data role, it doesn't have to be engineering, but it's the best. If you read something like this, just apply anyway, and maybe you get hired just because you look so excited in the interview, because enthusiasm is always greater than skills, especially for junior and entry roles. So why do I love this? You've probably picked up by now that I really love this. I love the infrastructure, architecture, data flow side. So I like thinking about the different elements and how they fit together and what you have to think about to make them fit together. I like thinking about security. So encryptions, I can talk far too long about permissions. That's another talk for another day. I like the business side or the human side as well. Like I like making pragmatic decisions about what works, what's effective, how much does it cost, what do we need to in order to do that. I really like that side as well. Also on the human side, I like talking to people about what they need and supporting them with that. Like something about being in those bottom 3 layers. I really like the idea that I'm lifting other people up. That's always brought me a kind of joy. And I really like drawing cylinders. You draw a lot of cylinders. A cylinder or a database is usually visualized as a cylinder. You have to make a lot of drawings as a data engineer because what we do is very abstract. So we have to visualize it for other people. You draw a lot of cylinders. So what I've talked about today, I've talked a bit about what data engineer does, both the tech side and the human side. I've talked about useful skills you can build on or topics you can look into if something sparked in your mind. And I've also talked about why I love this job. But ultimately, this is not a sales pitch, I promise. I'm aware that my job sounds quite boring to most people. I had a really nice moment a few months ago when I spoke to a data analyst in my team. She said, "I don't understand your job, it looks so boring." I replied, "I don't understand your job, it looks so boring." So, I mean, it's different things for different people. But if you like Python and you're interested in data, maybe it's a possibility for you. I didn't think I could become a data engineer this early. I thought I had to be much better than I was. Turns out you can just turn up and get better at it when you're there. And life is full of happy accidents, so be open to them. And if I've given you some skills to get away with being a data engineer, then that would make my life very happy, even happier. But one last thing, I've provided some resources. I guess I will also put these slides in the Slack channel afterwards. I've divided into beginner-friendly and reference materials. If you're looking into data for the first time, I recommend you stay in this area. There's also this book that I was referring to is Fundamentals of Data Engineering. It's very excellent. I have my copy with me in case anyone wants to have a look. It's very detailed. And I also provided a link to Monica Rigati's blog on the hierarchy of needs in case anyone wants to have a look at that. And that's really it from me now. Thank you.
Okay, great. And here is your badge, because I heard that. So if folks have questions, now is your time. You can also maybe grab the in-person if you don't feel confident to ask it in front of everybody else. My only request is, can you repeat the question? Because we won't hear you on the recording.
Okay.
When you're in the audience.
I repeat the question.
Yes.
Okay, I can do that.
So, who has a question? Don't all raise your hands at once.
Yeah.
Hey.
Thank you so much for the talk. I like it. What was the most challenging for you when you started? When you arrived the first day, what did you feel? What was, if you want to share it.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Oh yeah.
Question.
The question was, what was the most challenging thing when I first arrived?
When you started in this new role.
Yeah. So when I started in the new role, what was the most challenging thing for me? Everything. Understanding what a data engineer was. I think it's just a lot. Like, I didn't realize how challenging data engineering was until a year in, because so data engineering is a very specific part of software engineering. So as a data engineer, you have to know about software engineering, but really a lot about the data side. And I didn't realize how much I would have to learn. I think it was also interesting for me, like slightly outside of data engineering, but also having a full-time job. Like, it was my first corporate role. The corporate world is still very strange for me, but Signavio, or SAP Signavio nowadays, is a very friendly and welcoming place, luckily. Yeah, I think it's also because I'm kind of moving up seniority now, so I'm not an intermediate yet, but I'm going in that direction. And you always have these waves of a month where it's going to be really hard and you're going to be really tired a lot of the time. And I think those are always the harder bits, definitely. Yeah. Anyone else? Yeah.
So you said it was your first data engineer role, and how important for you it was to have this business knowledge or domain knowledge? Because it was totally new probably, right?
Yeah, I mean,
it's like
sorry.
It doesn't matter. So for data engineer, which kind of business are you?
So how important was the business knowledge? So how important was the business knowledge going into the engineering role? I learned as I went. Yeah, I think, again, it was something that was so new for me. I had to learn. So like, that was part of my onboarding, was learning what our products did, because like also didn't really, because that was the other question that my parents asked was, okay, you don't know what you're going to do, but what does your company do? And I'm like, don't know, sorry. So I think, again, I really, I learned as I went, and I feel like I'm still learning, like, because our products are changing all the time. So I have to regularly check in and find out what our products are turning into. I would say, I mean, for me, it was like they had a lot of faith in me at SAP Signavio and still continue to. And then you learn as you go. And then one day you wake up and you find you talk in acronyms all day. Yeah. So it comes with time, I think. But I think it shouldn't hold you back from applying to a position. Absolutely not. Like just do it, I think. Yeah. Hey.
Hey, nice talk. Thank you. You mentioned that you were excited to do a coding challenge in Python as opposed to JavaScript.
Yeah.
Can you talk a bit more about like your view of the differences between the two and why you prefer Python?
That's a nice question. So the question is, what is my perspective of the difference between JavaScript and Python, and why do I prefer Python? Yeah. So this was actually a moment in Frown Loop when this happened. It was like Python was really a love at first sight language for me. So Frown Loop is split into different cycles. You do 3 months, like one cycle was 3 months, and I did 3 of them. My first one was Intro to Web Development because I really knew I had zero coding knowledge when I started. And Intro to Web Development, of course, you're learning HTML, CSS, this goes to JavaScript. And we had to do, using an API, we had to do a for loop. I don't know, it was like a dating platform. You have to get the video, the photo, the name, the age, or whatever. And so one week it was write this for loop in JavaScript. I was like everything's in brackets and the semicolons. It's just, what is this? And then the next week was, okay, rewrite this for loop, but use Python. After a very brief introduction to Python. And then I'm like, so that one was 3 lines and I understand nothing. That is 2 lines and I understand everything. I think I like this one. So that was like my moment with Python of like, I have to do Python now. I have to do anything with Python. And the coding challenge was partly in Python and partly in SQL. So SQL, it was like the writing the queries, and then the Python part was like writing the Python version of those queries, sort of thing. Yeah, I disappeared in a little coding cave for 4 days and came out very happy. Yeah. Does that answer your question? Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah. Anyone else?
Maybe time for one more, if anyone has one.
I can ask a question.
Okay, you ask a question.
How is being a historian very similar to being a data engineer? The short answer is it's basically the same thing. You're working with data. When you're a historian, you have a bunch of data, which is in the form of very old texts. You're also taking care of very incomplete data sets and looking at which parts you can use, which parts you can't. And also reading a lot of documentation. You do a lot of reading. And the idea of always drilling deeper. If something doesn't seem right, you just keep going and you keep asking questions. Yeah. So weirdly, my degree was helpful in the end. Yeah. Okay.
Well, thank you, Victoria, for a great talk and a great question. So, you okay? Yeah. So we'll take a couple of minutes now to set up for the remote speaker, and that means that you can stretch, get a drink, get some more food if there's some left, use the bathroom. Roughly 5 minutes, and then come back into your seats, please.
Stopping, right?
Hi.
Hi, do you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Perfect. Okay. Could you just speak a little bit to me so I can get the
Of
roll?
course, like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and testing. Got it.
Perfect.
I don't know. Yeah,
Okay,
works.
so I add your slides, and then let's just get people here sorted. So,
It's very nice.
okay, so for our third speaker, we have Anya. She's actually not in Berlin, as we can see here. Let me make this full screen for the folks at home. She is actually sat in Luxembourg, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
Correct, yes.
So very great to have a guest all the way from Luxembourg join us for our live event here in Berlin. And Anya, you're going to talk to us about gathering our party. We have a bit of a party going on in the room here. Hopefully folks at home also have something like that too. I just want to, before I leave you to it, I just want to remove that banner that's going across the bottom. Yeah, there we go. It's a bit better. And yes, with that, I'm going to leave the stream, and I'll come back at the end so we can ask you questions.
Sure.
But thank you so much for joining us. And please, everyone here, give a round of applause for Anna for joining us.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's really a pleasure to talk to you. And actually, I'm very happy and I feel lucky that I had a chance to listen to V's talk, because it was extremely inspiring, and I actually want to be a data engineer right now myself. And I can totally relate to the story because I am a career changer myself. I'm a psychologist by training, and my PhD is also in psychology, but then I transitioned into a data analyst role first, and then to a data scientist. And currently I'm working in Luxembourg as a data scientist in an health IT company. But my story actually of the transition also started with PyLadies, with the PyLadies Poland, actually in Poznań. There was really amazing course that lasted a year, where people could come and learn Python totally for free, which is an amazing initiative, I guess. And it's funny because when V said about how being a historian is very similar to being a data engineer, I can totally relate, because I think that being a data scientist is exactly like being a psychologist. Because if you think about it, data is just behavior, just described with numbers, not with words. So, so if you think about it, like data-related work is very close to everything. And yeah, so I'm very happy I was able to listen to this talk. But since the introduction is done, I think I will start with my own presentation. And our topic today will be Gather Your Party. So there is a proverb saying that if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And today I would like to invite you to look a bit closer at allies that you probably have around you. And maybe you do not fully embrace all the good and all the help they can bring when you work towards achieving your goals. Usually, when you ask people about their goals, they can describe pretty well what they are heading toward and what they would like to achieve. Many will say that the goals you set up for yourself need to be smart, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time-bound. You know, they took proper trainings, they took part in mentoring programs, they have been coached, they know. But as humans, we also have this unique ability to be extremely self-centered, and sometimes to the extent that it is hard for us to see the bigger picture and take advantage of a perspective that goes beyond the scope of our goal. So I am an old nerd, and I still believe that 90s were 20 years ago. And in late 90s, Baldur's Gate was first released. A truly epic adventure with elves, wizards, orcs. Everybody who knows the game for sure heard the phrase multiple times and learned very well that you should never start a quest until you gather your party. Because if you have allies, they add to your strength and to your skill set. So I hope I got you at least a bit interested and curious now. How do we actually do it? But before we expand our perspective, I would like us to make sure that we cover the basics. So we know that brain needs mental stimulation. We, as beings, crave mental stimulation. This is something that drives us, and this is something without what we are basically declining. And the easiest way to provide our brain's mental stimulation is through learning new things, which is, again, kind of amazing because we learn best things that are interesting. If we engage our curiosity and imagination, it actually stimulates us best. So if something catches our interest, like with V and Python and data engineering, we start to dig into what interests us naturally. And in many cases, especially in the very beginning, almost effortlessly. Because if you're hooked on something, it just is like water to the fish for you. And then we look for instruction. We look for mentors. We look for different resources. We want to learn. If we want to learn, we also need to go to the very active part of this learning. So we need to practice and be very open to the fact that learning is an iterative process, that we will go 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 3 steps back, 4 steps forward. So learning requires patience, and also, yes, definitely requires what I said before and kind of laughed at a bit, requires this goal setting skills. So being able to be clear and specific about what we want and set up achievable goals for ourselves. And if we are a bit better with that, we also factor in rewards. Like, how do I actually will reward myself for doing it? And it can be embedded in a process, because if we are engaging our curiosity and we are doing something we are fascinated by, it actually is very much self-rewarding. But sometimes we are learning things that are not so engaging. And then it's good to factor in how you can actually treat yourself and give yourself something nice after a piece of work is done. But we tend to really, really focus on this part. And if I talk to people, and I also mentor others who are career transitioners, they are very often very good with that part that I just described. But the problem is that we are much more than only our heads. And I feel like this part is something we do not always pay enough attention to. So we also have bodies. And I feel like, especially when I talk to people who are working in STEM, we love solving problems. We love really engaging our minds and being hooked on seeking solutions to anything that is in our way. So we often neglect our bodies. And I think that's a general tendency in current world. We very often forget that our bodies are actually the vessels that carry everything that, this brain that solves the problems. So even though it may sound funny, keep yourself hydrated and eat, and be very mindful of how much sleep are you getting and what is the quality of this sleep. Because it's really hard to learn anything, and it's really hard to keep focus when your body is stressed because it's malnourished or tired. And if you really want to level this up, it would be great to spend a lot of time outdoors. And if you are a fan, and even if you're not that much, exercise, because it will help you get more oxygen into your brain that's solving these amazing problems, but also will help you, for example, with the sleep quality. And we have this tendency, as I said before, to kind of forget about our bodies. But the cognitive element that I mentioned, our attention, is actually very vulnerable, and it's very sensitive to everything that is happening to our biological body. So whenever you are actually losing focus when working on something, and regardless if this is like a short-term thing, something you need to finish in an hour, or something you need to finish in 3 months from now, you need to be focused. You need your attention working properly. And taking good care of your body is actually one of the very first steps to taking good care of your attention span. The other thing that we sometimes forget is the fact that we are social beings. Our brain needs not only oxygen, nutrients, and water, it also needs to be embedded into a social network. Social interaction is stimulating. Hardly any job happens in isolation, but being with other people, exchanging with other people, actually helps us to keep our emotional well-being, but also keeps our motivation on. Because just like today's event, others, listening to others, meeting with others, being witnesses to their stories and listening to what they have to say, learning from their experience is actually extremely motivating and helps us to go and keep ourselves on track. But the support system can not only is there to inspire us, sometimes our friends can hold us accountable and provide the necessary support for us not to give up if we are struggling with something. And what is even more fascinating and from my perspective, very important and I think kind of eye-opening is that we actually cope with everything in our lives better if we have high quality support close to us. If we have people around us with whom we feel safe, with whom we feel ourselves, and with whom we can be as we are. And there was an amazing study that I very often cite, but I honestly think that knowing the results of this study kind of changed my perspective, if not life, in a way. And it's a study by James Cohen and colleagues. And in this study, there were 3 experimental conditions. So subjects could receive a low intensity electric shock. Of course, every psychological experiment with electric shock is always better. Everybody knows that. So they were electrocuted with a low intensity electric shock in the presence of a stranger, in the presence of a loved one, or while they were alone. And those in satisfying relationships showed less activation of a network associated with responding to a threatening situation, while those in less satisfying relationships showed increased activation in areas that were associated with the release of stress hormones. In the presence of a stranger, the stress reaction was more pronounced, and it intensified even more when person experienced the electric shock alone. And these results suggest that the brain's threat response is reduced when high-quality partners are nearby, and that it takes more effort to cope when only a stranger is available, and it's most costly when we are forced to deal with anything alone. So it's good to have in mind that whom we surround ourselves with really matters for almost everything we do. In a way, people are like plants. I'm not especially a plant person, but I'm definitely a people person, and I can see analogies. We do not blame a plant for not growing or not blooming if we do not provide it with the necessary elements for the growth process. And it's very same situation with humans. There was, actually, I think she was German of origin, psychoanalyst in the 30s, Karen Horney. And she was saying that you cannot teach an acorn to grow into an oak tree. But when given a chance, its intrinsic potentialities will develop. And it's similarly with a human individual. Given a chance, we tend to develop the unique forces of our real selves. And if given a chance, we will grow undiverted toward self-realization. So just like any plant needs sunlight, water, nutrients, needs air of a proper quality. And even if you think about it, needs proper temperature. We do too. So we are fully aware that plants need to be put in a proper environment to give us what is best of them, to grow, to give oxygen, to be beautiful in any way you will like to define beauty. So I think it's time to start looking at ourselves with similar understanding. Therefore, there is a take-home message from what I said. Where we put ourselves in really matters. Who we surround ourselves with can be crucial to our well-being and therefore affect not only how we are, but also how we are able to navigate in this world. So next time you will plan a journey, any journey, regardless if it's one involving moving through space or one involving your heart or mind, be sure you will include the broader context. Be sure to list your allies. From a bottle of water to a best friend, name every single one and remember that they are on your side. Shortly, remember to gather your party before venturing forth. Thank you.
I joined stream just a little bit late, probably for you to hear the big applause from the room. But thank you so much, Anna. It was a great talk, really insightful, lots of food for thought there. So yeah, now if anyone has any questions, if you're remote, you can write them in the comments. And if you're in the room, you can raise your hand. I'll probably just repeat it for Anna to be able to hear. So maybe I can kick off while everyone's thinking about their questions. Anna, I was wondering, so you kind of like spoke, I really like the way that you framed things in like these kind of, you know, starting from the self and then looking outwards at all of the things that interact with a person and kind of lead you towards getting towards your goals. I like that holistic view. I was wondering, like, sometimes when you're kind of taking this journey, especially if you're like taking this journey with others, it can be a lot easier if you kind of think about the way that you would like to treat them and treat yourself in this way. So do you have any kind of like tips for people of like how to set, you know, give themselves the same value as they might for others?
That's a very difficult question, actually, and I'm not sure. I'm not sure it is even possible to give like, you know, like a life hack for that. Yeah. I'm trying to, you know, like go quickly, because I think that I wonder if it's even possible to treat ourselves like we do treat others, because there is one very there's one very important difference. We are very often able to see others as they are in the environment. It's very hard for us to see ourselves like that. We are usually very attached to our sensations, to our thoughts, to our feelings. And actually, I think it requires training to be able to step outside of yourself and imagine how the situation you're in is actually affecting you, and how you can be a better friend to yourself in this situation. I think it's a very challenging in many situations, especially if the situation you're facing is new to you. Because if it's something that repeats, then probably you're a bit more lucky, because you know the drill. You know how you will react. You know what you need. You've been through several scenarios, probably trying to test different solutions. And I think that there's no other way than iterations and learning to actually achieve what you're asking about. I'm not sure anybody can give you an easy answer to this question, because I think it's very individual. And actually, I think if you would even ask people in the room, when you are in challenging situation, what do you need? For many people, it would be a very hard question, because some of us know very well. Some of us have been through a lot and we experimented. We know what we need in what kind of situation, under what kind of stress, we need what kind of support. But if something is new, sometimes it's really hard to know. And I'm kind of reflecting right now on what V said, that when she went for the first time into her corporate job, the world was so different compared to what she knew. And I totally relate to that because I switched my outpatient clinic to Franklin Templeton office. And the difference was so huge that I felt like I really landed on a different planet. And it's not only learning curve when it comes to the skills. Do you have those tech skills you need? Can you actually do the analysis? Can you prepare this report they're asking? It's actually the whole environment that changes. You not only sit in a different place, you meet people that work in a different way. You meet with different expectations, but you also meet to very different reactions to your own reactions. So when I think about it, the only way to go, sometimes it's just gentle with yourself. And if you cannot think how you would, in a way, treat yourself like you would treat this plant. And sometimes the only thing you can do is just try not to kill it in the very beginning. And if it survives, try to do it better.
Okay, very harsh ending to that answer there. Somewhat, but yeah, maybe someone has a slightly less sexy question in the audience. Anyone?
Yeah. But just to make it more positive, sometimes really the only thing you can do is try to survive. And when you manage, then you can go into growth mindset. And my first weeks at the corporate job was exactly this. Oh my God, I'm trying to survive. Did I make a mistake? Well, I landed in Luxembourg, so it's not that bad in the end, but it was a bumpy road. And I really think that what kept me going in some moments, it was really the fact that I went out running, that I went for a really long walk with my dog, that I took a nap in the middle of the day. Thank you, COVID, for home office.
I think we have another question from V. Do you want to come up and ask it so they can hear, or do you want me to repeat it?
I feel like they just answered it. So, what is the sport that you enjoy?
Okay, the question is, what is the sport that you enjoy? And we think maybe we got a glimpse there of dog walking and running, but...
Yeah, but I actually do multi-sports. My latest hook on is climbing. So I don't know, probably in 6 months it will be something better because I'm one of those people who need constant and changing stimulation. So, every 6 months it's different.
But maybe in summer we can do PyLadies bouldering edition and all work on it together. Okay, Anna, well, look, I think there are no more questions in the audience here. We don't have any online, but thank you so much. People can reach out to you on your LinkedIn, sure. Right? If I'm not mistaken.
Of course. Yeah.
And thank you so much for joining us. I hope you have a lovely rest of your evening and that we get to meet in person at some point in the not so distant future.
I'm really hoping that we will. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for your time and enjoy your evening.
Thank you. Another round of applause. All right, folks. We will say goodbye to everyone online now and end the broadcast, and we will be continuing a little bit further here with networking and so forth. Have a great evening, and if you're watching the recording, I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave us some comments so we know what you'd like us to do next time.